Donald Trump himself has stepped into the Anthropic Department of War argument, also started a new war over in the Middle East. So it's been a busy weekend. What I'm going to be doing is walking through what's going on with Anthropic, what this means, the fallout that we're seeing right now, including a lot of people saying they're going to be leaving OpenAI, leaving ChatGPT for reasons we'll get into in a moment, as well as talking about how you can move to Claude if you want to support what they're up to. I'm going to be talking about the migration and the memory features. You can move from someone like ChatGPT onto Claude. So I think we have to start with Donald Trump's tweet. Not a tweet. I don't know what it's called over on Truth Social, his post. So if you've seen this on screen, you'll see all the block capitals. I'm not going to yell it for those who are listening with audio, but it starts with all caps. The United States of America will never allow a radical left woke company to dictate how our great military fights and wins wars. Back to lowercase. That decision belongs to your commander-in-chief and the tremendous leaders I appoint to run our military. That would be a fantastic t-shirt. Just the Anthropic logo, maybe on a hat. The Anthropic logo and left-wing nut job. They have made a disastrous mistake trying to strong-arm the Department of War, also known previously as the Department of Defense or the Pentagon, and force them to obey their terms of service instead of our Constitution. Their selfishness is putting American lives at risk, our troops in danger, and our national security in jeopardy. Therefore, I am directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease all use of Anthropic's technology. We don't need it, we don't want it, and we will not do business with them again. There will be a 6-month phase-out period for agencies like the Department of War who are using Anthropic's products. Anthropic better get their act together and be helpful during this phase-out period, or I will use the full power of the presidency to make them comply with major civil and criminal consequences to follow. We will decide the fate of our country, not some out-of-control radical left company run by people who have no idea. A couple of things here. This is in response to what we talked about in the last live. We talked about the fact that Anthropic had been given a deadline, I think it was 5 p.m. on Friday, to comply and to say that the 2 red line issues that they talked about would not be a problem. Anthropic pushed back on that. Dario put out a statement. We went through this in the last live in full, so you can go back and see that in today's newsletter, basically saying, shove it. Absolutely not. We're not going to do any of this. So the 2 red lines were mass domestic surveillance, not wanting to use Claude-based projects, Anthropic-based products in domestic surveillance. And the second was fully autonomous weapons. Now, very importantly, it's not all autonomous weapons. Anthropic do not have a problem with autonomous weapons. We have to be clear here. A lot of people are putting them in the light of these are the good guys. They're going to take us into a world of ethical, moral artificial intelligence. No, they are still willing to use artificial intelligence in autonomous weapons. They are not willing to use them in a way that is unsafe. We will not knowingly provide a product that puts America's war fighters and civilians at risk. So they want to make sure it's safe enough so it does not harm American soldiers and civilians. That's very different from not wanting to use them on any enemy combatants. Yes, they're the good guys in this particular argument. They're not perfect. So we just need to be clear about that. So these were the 2 red lines. Anthropic basically told the Pentagon to shove it. And immediately afterwards, they were declared a supply chain risk by Peter. Excuse me, I'm never going to be able to say his name. And then Trump sent out that tweet as well. Anthropic's stance is, regardless, these threats do not change our position. So you can declare us a supply chain risk. You can invoke the Defense Production Act to force the safeguards removal. But we cannot, in good conscience, accede to their request. This was Anthropic's statement. So immediately at 5 p.m., the Pentagon followed up with their threats. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth designates Anthropic a supply chain risk. Now, this has never been invoked on a American domestic company before. Generally, it's used for companies like Huawei, Chinese Kaspersky, I think, got it once. So Russian and Chinese companies. Very rarely, I think never, has it been invoked on a domestic company. So this is unprecedented. I'm going to quickly bypass that wall. Don't do what I'm doing. Yeah, Alan, I'm never going to get it right. Hegseth. There we go. So let's have a look at this. So Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, there we go, designates Anthropic a supply chain risk. Military suppliers and contractors are banned from working with Anthropic as its Pentagon AI standoff continues. Now, we need to see this in the light, which we'll talk about in a moment, of this. Trump says they must immediately cease, in all caps, all use of Anthropic's technology. We don't need it, we don't want it, we will not do business with them again. The next sentence is, there will be a 6-month phase-out period for agencies like the Department of War. Wait, what? 6-month phase-out and immediately cease. These things do not go together. So there is a get-out here, and allow for the Department of War to keep using it, and allow for Anthropic to save their necks. We'll talk about that in a moment, because Anthropic's products were used in the attacks on Iran a few days later. Pete Hegseth has put through the supply chain risk designation on Anthropic. So nearly 2 hours after President Donald Trump announced on Truth Social that he's banning Anthropic products from the federal government, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth announced he was now designating the AI company as a supply chain risk. The decision could immediately impact numerous major tech companies that use Claude in their line of work with the Pentagon, including Palantir and AWS, Amazon Web Services. Remember that Amazon has a lot of money invested into Anthropic as well. So I haven't heard what they're doing yet, but over this weekend they've been in crisis mode, working out what to do. It is not clear to what extent the Pentagon may blacklist companies that contract with Claude. So after a week of tense negotiations over the acceptable use policies, so the 2 red lines that we talked about, the Pentagon gave Anthropic an ultimatum: agree by Friday, 5:30 p.m. EST, or let the Pentagon use Claude for all legal purposes, including autonomous lethal weapons and mass surveillance. The Verge should point out here that it is mass domestic surveillance. That was the problem that Anthropic had. They do not care. They're perfectly happy to use Claude and Anthropic products in surveillance of non-Americans. But domestic surveillance, they said, no, we're not doing that. The designation will bar any company that uses Anthropic products from working with the Department of Defense. In a tweet posted just after 5 p.m, broadened the designation to encompass companies doing any commercial activity with Anthropic. So not just national security, but anyone who's connected. Pretty wide, reiterating Trump's mandate that companies had 6 months to divest themselves from Anthropic's products. Now, that is not what Trump said. So let's actually have a look at Hegseth's. Here we go. In conjunction with the President's directive for the federal government to cease all of Anthropic's technology, I am directing the Department of War to designate Anthropic a supply chain risk to national security. Effective immediately, no contractor, supplier, or partner that does business with the United States military may conduct any commercial activity with Anthropic. Anthropic will continue to provide the Department of War its services for a period of no more than 6 months to allow for a seamless transition to a better and more patriotic service. So I think the Verge is wrong here. That is not what he said. Our position has never wavered. So that's where we are right now. Anthropic is sticking to their guns. So you can continue to use Anthropic. We do not know what the future is going to be like for Claude. We do not know if they'll be able to continue operating in the US. If they cannot operate in the US, they will not be able to operate anywhere else. A couple of reasons here. So I've seen a number of people saying, oh, why don't they just move to Europe? In short, we don't have the infrastructure or the money for them to continue to survive. And if they're investors, companies like Amazon, for example, pull out their investments or in some way break ties with Anthropic, that means there's not going to be sufficient funds to continue developing artificial intelligence at the scale and at the level of quality that Anthropic have been doing for the last few years. They've been able to do this because they have money, because they have the infrastructure in America. They have ability to buy things like GPUs from NVIDIA, which they would not be able to do because of this supply chain risk. All of that gets removed from them if they get blacklisted, and coming to Europe or going anywhere else that's not the United States of America would not help them. They would not be able to access GPUs, they'd not be able to access finance, they'd not be able to access infrastructure. It would be the death sentence for them. Lovely idea, bringing them over to Europe. Unless we can also provide them with all of those other things which we cannot do, it's not going to work. It's not feasible. So, to complicate matters, the US military reportedly used Claude in the Iran strike despite Trump's ban. Misleading headline from The Guardian, because he did say it can be used for 6 months. Remember, Trump has left in a get-out clause. I think what's happening here is a lot like TikTok. There was a TikTok ban. They kept pushing back the deadline until an agreement could be made, a deal could be reached. I think something very similar is going to be happening here, which is an admission that the Department of War and the US government need Anthropic. I think this is probably one of the biggest takeaways right now, is that an AI company can go toe-to-toe with the American government and come out of it without being completely destroyed. Yes, there's supply chain risk, but I think this 6 months that has been put in is to allow wiggle room. Again, we will see what happens this week. It's really hard to tell because this news is changing so quickly. There are actors who might not be fully rational, let's put it that way, placing bets on this, which people are doing on Polymarket. is difficult because we do not know where this is going. But I think there's wiggle room. The US military reportedly used Claude in Iran despite Trump's ban. Trump called Anthropic a radical left AI company run by people who have no idea what the real world is about. Yet their models, Claude, was used in the strikes over the weekend. The US military reportedly used Claude, Anthropic's AI model, to inform its attack on Iran despite Donald Trump's decision announced hours earlier to sever all ties with the company and its AI tool. From a practical point of view, if they were already using it and they were about to launch a strike on a foreign country, like from a practical point of view, you're going to continue using it. I'm interested to know what they were using it for, genuinely. So the use of Claude during the massive joint US-Israel bombardment of Iran that began on Saturday was reported by the Wall Street Journal and Axios. It underlies the complexity of the US military withdrawing powerful AI tools from its missions when the technology is also already intricately embedded in operations. Yeah, you're not going to pull a piece of software out hours before a military operation. It's not feasible. According to the journal, US military command used the tool for intelligence purposes, as well as to select targets and carry out battlefield simulations. Let's go over to Ethan Mollick. A useful piece of context here is that the government does not have access to better AI models than you. Actually, they are worse because they usually don't get the latest models. Although they may have different guardrails, you should view government AI capabilities through that lens. I've seen a lot of people saying it's because the government can do this kind of thing. They can use Claude for intelligence purposes and selecting targets and carrying out battlefield simulations because they have Claude 5. They have the next version. They have 5.5. They have AGI sitting in the Pentagon. They do not. They have the same models as we do, the ones that we can get access to for $20 a month. Maybe they have even older models because the newest models haven't been fully vetted yet. So they might still be using 4.5, for example, instead of 4.6. They might be using GPT-5 instead of 5.2 because it requires additional vetting. They do not have this secret model. So they are, let's be very clear about this, they are going into Claude, uploading a bunch of files and saying, hey, where should we drop bombs? Where should we strike based on this? And then giving them military targets. Now, this is not going to be the only way they're deciding these targets. This is just being used as a supplementary tool. They are still just using what we are using on a day-to-day basis. There is not a big secret AGI model that is powering the Pentagon that is somehow making more intelligent decisions than what we can get for $20, $100 a month. So it's being used. That means that the people in the military are using it in the same way that we will use it. Will they have additional training about hallucinations? Will they have additional training about agreeableness? I don't know. So potentially they are going into these tools and giving it their plans. Claude is saying, oh, you're absolutely right. Agreeing with them, letting them work in this echo chamber where they are being told that this is a fantastic idea and then reinforcing certain actions. When we are using it to prepare a draft script or to put together an email that we're going to send to a colleague, and that agreeableness, that potential for hallucination is not the end of the world. When it comes to designating military targets and for intelligence purposes, for some people, it is literally the end of the world. Some people will not wake up because of this. So we need to be very careful. So I think Ethan is right to point out this additional context. So he goes on to say the economics of model training are such that the labs need to release their big models widely. They cannot generate returns from always holding back their best models so one customer uses them. Fine-tuning and specialized SLMs are useful, but they don't expand the ability frontier. If anything, you're shrinking it. You're shrinking the frontier within an existing model. So they don't necessarily have this better model that they are deploying for the Pentagon. Almost certainly not. If anything, they're using a slightly earlier model. Also, the government has a lot of computers, but they are the wrong kind of compute for inference. They need to use AWS or another cloud provider, just like you do. So don't fall for the idea that the government are using a special version of Claude. They're not. They're using it exactly the same one as we are. So on Friday, just hours before the Iran attack began, Trump ordered all federal agencies to stop using Claude immediately. But didn't, because he also said you've got 6 months. He denounced Anthropic on Truth Social as a radical left AI company run by people who have no idea what the real world is all about. The flaming row was triggered by the use of Claude in the US military in its raid to capture the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, in January. Anthropic objected, pointing to its terms of use which do not allow Claude to be applied to violent ends, to develop weapons, or for surveillance. Since then, they've come back on that. They're saying you can use it for surveillance, you can use it to deploy weapons, but we need to make sure the surveillance is not domestic, Americans, and the weapons that we're going to be creating do not harm American warfighters or civilians. So they have pulled back on that. They have no problem with Claude being used in war. Otherwise, they would not have signed a $200 million contract with the Department of War. I've seen this argument, people saying, what were they expecting? They have no problem using this for military targeting, carrying out military operations for killing. The red lines are very specific to domestic surveillance and to autonomous weapons, which are not yet safe enough, so they may harm American soldiers. Since then, the relationship between Trump, the Pentagon, and the AI company has worsened. In a lengthy post on X on Friday, the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, accused Anthropic of arrogance and betrayal. America's warfighters will never be held hostage by the ideological whims of big tech. Hegseth demanded full and unrestricted access to all Anthropic's AI models for every lawful purpose defined by them, which includes killing. But the Defense Secretary also gave a nod to the difficulty of rapidly detaching military systems from the AI tool, given how widely used they have become. He said that Anthropic would continue to provide services for no more than 6 months to allow for a seamless transition to a better and more patriotic service, Grok or OpenAI, who have been waiting in the wings for this. Since the break with Anthropic, the rival company OpenAI has stepped into their breach. Sam Altman, CEO, said he had reached agreement with the Pentagon for use in its classified network of the company's tools, which include ChatGPT. Brand says, OpenAI's hold my beer. Yes, 100%. A few hours after this tweet from Donald Trump, OpenAI released a statement saying, yeah, we're good for it, don't worry. We'll look at that statement in a moment, which has triggered a lot of people to say, screw you guys, I'm leaving ChatGPT and I'm going to Claude, which we shall swing over to in a minute. Morning, Jesse. Morning, guys. Oh, heck, your plans for Cyprus currently on hold? Nope, not at all. No, Cyprus is near the area, but it's not that close. Cyprus does have UK Royal Air Force bases on it, and those I'm sure are going to be used by the US, but no, I'm not particularly worried. Yeah. As Ellen points out, it's perfectly patriotic to use Claude on Iranian leaders and US undocumented immigrants. And Claude, Anthropic don't have a problem with that per se. So I know a lot of people are saying these are our saviors. They're going to take us into the world of utopian AI. No, that is not what's happening. We still need to remember all of these big AI companies are perfectly happy to use the artificial intelligence in war. Claude is down, is it? Yes, it is. Elevated errors on all platforms. As of 10 minutes ago, we're currently investigating this issue. If the US military needs it for the invasion or their bombing, that's bad news for them too. This could just be coincidental, but it's hard to tell. There have been a lot of outages over the last few days, to be fair though. Yeah, good timing. It's so funny. Okay, OpenAI's hold my beer. A couple of hours after all of this went down, OpenAI released a statement saying, hey, don't worry, we're here, we gotcha. So yesterday we reached an agreement with the Department of War for deploying AI systems in classified environments, which we requested they make available to all AI companies. Context here, previously it was only Anthropic who had this designation as security clearance. Previously OpenAI had been like, can we have it too? And they'd been refused. So had Grok and Google. That has changed now. So OpenAI have stepped into that breach. We think our deployment has more guardrails than any previous agreement for classified AI deployments, including Anthropic's. Here's why. So yesterday we reached an agreement with the Pentagon for deploying advanced AI systems in classified environments, which we requested they also make available to all AI companies. This means US AI companies. We think our agreement has more guardrails than any previous agreement for classified AI deployments, including Anthropic's. Here's why. We have 3 main red lines that guide our work with the Department of War, which are generally shared by several other frontier labs. So we've got 3 red lines compared to the 2 that Anthropic had before. So no use of OpenAI technology for mass domestic surveillance. This is the same red line that Anthropic had. The only difference here, I think, is mass. Let's see. No, mass is the same. So that's the same wording there. We have to be careful about this because the details are very important. So mass domestic surveillance. No use of OpenAI technology to direct autonomous weapon systems. Okay, that is the same red line as Anthropic. If anything, it's a little wider because that is a more broad sweeping. They're also calling it autonomous weapon systems instead of, what's it, kinetic? I always forget. Autonomous kinetic operations. That's the euphemism. No use of OpenAI technology for high-stakes automated decisions, e.g. systems such as social credit. The fact that they even mentioned social credit is fascinating here. I don't know why they brought that up specifically, because now people are going to be worried about a social credit system. Other AI labs have reduced or removed their safety guardrails and relied primarily on usage policies as their primary safeguards in national security deployments. We think our approach better protects against unacceptable use. We protect our red line through a more expansive, multi-layer approach. We retain full discretion over our safety stack. We deploy via cloud. Cleared OpenAI personnel are in the loop, and we have strong contractual protections. This is all in addition to the strong existing protections in US law. We believe strongly in democracy. This is the statement from Dario Amodei, the head of Anthropic, that everyone has to make sure that they declare how much they believe in democracy and America. So all of these statements have that patriotic vibe to them. We believe strongly in democracy. Given the importance of this technology, we believe the only good path forward requires deep collaboration between AI efforts and the democratic process. We also believe our technology is going to introduce new risks into the world, and we want people defending the United States to have the best tool. We need to point out that there's a very strong argument here. Some people have said, oh, we shouldn't be using AI at all in defense or in war. This is a lovely idea, but China will be deploying AI militarily. As such, this is the new race. This is the new space race. This is the new Cold War. You need to keep up, and you need to be realistic and deploy militarily as well. Again, if we could unilaterally decide as a species, hey, maybe we don't arm robots, maybe we don't create killbots, that would be cool. Unilaterally, if we can decide that, fantastic. We are not very good at doing that. And this is just an extension of drone warfare, widening out its capabilities and allowing for autonomous decision making as well. So the agreement that they've got, and this is a couple of hours after the pulling out of Anthropic, includes deployment architecture, cloud-only deployment with a safety stack that we run that includes these principles and others. So that means it's not physically inside of the Department of War, so they can't tinker around with it. They can't bypass the guardrails. So OpenAI is saying we own it, we hold it, and the Department of War is going to be accessing it via the cloud. We're not providing the Department of War with guardrails off or non-safety trained models, nor are we deploying our models on edge devices where there is a possibility for usage in autonomous lethal weapons. Edge artificial intelligence is putting it on devices like this instead of running it from a server. Now, when I query ChatGPT, my telephone is sending a message up to the servers that has been processed up there, then it's sending the message back to the application on my phone. That is not Edge AI. If I had the model on my device, and it's fully local, on a little device which is on the edge of the network, hence Edge, then that is very different because I have more control over what this model does. It's not sending information back and forth to a server. I can do more nefarious things on here. I can fine tune it. I can set it up so it can be used as a weapon. So what they're saying is, no, it's all going to be centralized. We're going to have eyes on what's happening with this deployment. So they're basically saying the Department of War can't get up to any shenanigans without us knowing. If there are shenanigans, that's the next step. Because you can say all of this stuff, but how much are you going to kick up a fuss like Anthropic did, these situations surviving? Our deployment architecture will enable us to independently verify that these red lines are not crossed, including running and updating classifiers. And that's fine. Our contract, here is the relevant language. They're giving us stuff from the contract. So the Department of War may use AI systems for all lawful purposes, consistent with applicable law, operational requirements, and well-established safety and oversight protocols. The AI systems will not be used to independently direct autonomous weapons in any case where law, regulation, and department policy require human control. So the US government can just change the laws, regulation, and department policy to not require human control. And then it is still a lawful purpose up here. So that, to me, seems like a lot of wiggle room, especially if it's a department policy here. If that can be pushed through, the use of artificial intelligence in autonomous weapons is allowed, then OpenAI are sitting there ready to help with that endeavor. So I wouldn't be too surprised if over the next few months we see shifts in law, regulation, and department policy around human control in autonomous weapons. Nor will it be used to assume other high-stakes decisions that require approval by a human decision maker. Exactly the same problem here. If you get rid of the requirement for approval, then you have autonomous weaponry. Per DoD directive, any use of AI in autonomous and semi-autonomous systems must undergo verification, validation, and testing to ensure they perform as intended in realistic environments before deployment. Again, that is a Department of Defense directive. They can change that. This is saying we will absolutely play by the rules, but the people who are deciding the rules are the Department of War. They can change those rules, and then suddenly the AI can be used in autonomous weaponry. For intelligence activities, any handling of private information will comply with the Fourth Amendment. Good. The National Security Act of 1947 and the Foreign Intelligence and Surveillance Act of 1978. So this is a bit stronger. This first one about autonomous weapons with law, regulation, and department policy, I think that allows wiggle room. You'd have to go through the Fourth Amendment and various security acts. Executive Order 12333 and applicable DoD directives requiring a defined foreign intelligence purpose. So you cannot just use it for spying on people in the US domestically. The AI system shall not be used for unconstrained monitoring of US persons' private information as consistent with these authorities. The system shall not be used for domestic law enforcement activities, except as permitted by the Posse, Comitatus Act and other applicable laws. So the big open question here, how will this connect with things like ICE, with non-US citizens living in the US? Will somebody potentially use this foreign intelligence purpose and twist that to allow the use of artificial intelligence in the surveillance of non-US citizens in the US? So again, there will be ways around this, I'm sure, and I'm sure the language of this will be studied in great detail. There will be legal experts who are much better at this kind of thing than me, who will be able to break this down. If I find some, I will make sure they're in the newsletter. But what I'm seeing is some wiggle room. 3, AI expert involvement. We will have cleared forward deployed OpenAI engineers helping the government with cleared safety and alignment researchers in the loop. So basically placing people into the Department of War to keep an eye on it. Fair. And then some FAQs from OpenAI. The first one is, why are you doing this? And OpenAI respond, first, we think the US military absolutely needs strong AI models to support their mission, especially in the face of growing threats from potential adversaries who are increasingly integrating AI technologies into their system. That is fair. China are doing this, and China are well ahead in terms of robotics. If anyone's going to have a robot army quickly, it's going to be China, because they have the manufacturing capabilities, they have the AI models, and they have the more advanced in robotics for the most part than America. We originally did not jump into the contract for classified deployment as we did not feel that our safeguards and systems were ready, and have been working hard to ensure that classified deployment can happen with safeguards to ensure that red lines are not crossed. We were and remain unwilling to remove key technical safeguards to enhance performance on national security work. That is not the correct approach to supporting the US military. Second, we also wanted to de-escalate things between the Department of War and the US AI labs, so Anthropic. They're saying we're stepping in and we're actually helping Anthropic. To be fair, in his defense, Sam Altman did come out in support of Dario Amodei. Do not like each other. They're not fans of each other. In Delhi the other day, there was an AI summit and they refused to hold hands. They were both standing there awkwardly with their hands in the air while everyone else on stage, the Prime Minister of India, gripping hands in solidarity. Dario Amodei and Sam Altman refused to touch each other. Sam Altman did come out in defense of Dario, kind of saying, no, I see what they're doing and we do need to deploy this safely. This could be a smokescreen. This could be for PR, maybe. I think it's complicated enough without having to layer in additional conspiracy theories. So I think this is probably in good faith. We want to de-escalate things between the Department of War and the US AI labs is a sensible thing to do. It's a strategic thing to do. A good future is going to require real and deep collaboration between the government and the AI labs. We ask that the same terms be made available to all AI labs and that the government would try to resolve things with Anthropic. The current state is a very bad way to kick off this next phase of collaboration between the government and the AI labs. If Anthropic go down, if it ceases to exist, it could pop the whole bubble. So OpenAI and Anthropic are relying on external investment to continue building their models, to continue buying GPUs, paying for cloud compute, paying for inference, deploying it for us. Anthropic, for example, are running at a loss when they give us a subscription. It's costing a lot of money for them to provide all of that inference. If Anthropic suddenly gets removed from the game, that's going to have a knock-on effect on the markets and confidence in artificial intelligence as an investment. Sam Altman, this is purely cynically, it doesn't matter what he thinks about Anthropic, doesn't matter what he thinks about Dario Amodei. He needs it to remain stable. He needs confidence in artificial intelligence. He doesn't need stuff like this rocking the boat because he needs continued investment into artificial intelligence. Whether it's going into Anthropic, whether it's going into OpenAI is less important than the fact that it is coming in at all. So he needs this stable. Escalation and fighting and the destruction of Anthropic could destabilize what is arguably a financial bubble that we're in right now. Next question is, why could you reach a deal when Anthropic could not? Did you sign the deal they wouldn't? These are very direct FAQs. I'm glad they're dealing with them. Based on what we know, because remember, everything is behind the scenes, we don't really know. We believe our contract provides better guarantees and more responsible safeguards than earlier agreements, including Anthropic's original contract. We think our red lines are more enforceable here because deployment is limited to cloud only, keeps our safety stack working in the way we think is best, and keeps cleared OpenAI personnel in the loop. We don't know why Anthropic could not reach this deal, and we hope that they and more labs will consider it. So they're saying it's not because we're coming in and promising the Department of War will play ball where Anthropic will not. Instead, they're saying, actually, no, we have an even stronger agreement with even more red lines, and they're more enforceable, and it's cloud only. So this is even safer than the Anthropic deal, and we don't know why Anthropic couldn't make this deal. Do we believe them? Potentially. It sounds very crude, but the fallout between Anthropic and the Department of War could just be personality based. So Dario is less diplomatic than Sam Altman, let's put it that way. I could see a reality where he rubbed them the wrong way, and then egos in the Department of War, Pete Hegseth, and then the president, meant that this escalated in a way that OpenAI are better able to navigate and to make the right promises at the right time and the right concessions at the right time, and just to smooth their way through. They are very good at this. They're doing well, and they are one of the largest models and companies on this planet with AI because of this. They are a very well-oiled machine, whereas Anthropic are a bit more scrappy. And I could imagine Dario and the researchers and the team at Anthropic potentially pissing off the Department of War. It could be something that basic. We won't know because it's all behind closed door, but this means that OpenAI is able to secure a deal. Do you think Anthropic should be designated as a supply chain risk? No. And we have made our position on this clear to the government. Sam came out in support of Dario and Anthropic, saying this is a problem. Again, this comes back to the stability of the market. This puts a huge amount of pressure on the AI market as a whole and makes it look very shaky, very unsteady. And if people stop putting money in, the whole thing could come crumbling down. Will this deal enable the Department of War to use OpenAI models to power autonomous weapons? No. Based on our safety stack, our cloud-only deployment, the contract language, the existing laws, regulation, and policy, we are confident that this cannot happen. We will also have OpenAI personnel in the loop for additional assurance. Will this deal enable the Department of War to use OpenAI to conduct mass surveillance on US persons? No. Based on our safety stack, this has gone through the lawyers. Based on our safety stack, the contract language and existing laws that heavily restrict the Department of War from domestic surveillance, we are confident that this cannot happen. We will also have OpenAI personnel in the loop for additional assurances. So the lawyers are now given the same answer here. The PR people and the lawyers will be sticking to this line. So I will put the whole thing, because this goes on for a while, in the newsletter. There is a lot to digest here, like a lot going on. Plus, it will continue. It's now Monday. We will find out what's going to be happening. There will be more chaos. There will be more drama. America is now at war as well. So that's a new development since then. So we have no idea what's going to be going on. And unfortunately with these videos, I do these lives and then the processed version of the video and the short versions come out the next day. Everything's moving so fast that those videos are already out of date by the next day, which is very frustrating, but it is what it is. A big question that I would have is whether the government will get a separate model or use the public model. I addressed this just before you came on, I think, Zed. So Ethan Mollick made the really important point here, and I think it's worth readdressing, that the government doesn't have access to better special models. They don't have Opus 5. It just doesn't exist. He's probably using worse models because of the additional layers of security and checks. So when a new model comes out from Anthropic or ChatGPT, we get it immediately. If you're paying your $20, if you're paying your $100 a month, you get the best model. That model will be released and it will have to go through procurement. It will have to go through checks and balances inside of the Department of War and whatever the government department is. So they might actually be using a worse model than us. But he's pointing out there isn't like a secret better model. They're not using AGI in the Pentagon. They are just using Opus 4.6 or Opus 4.5 maybe. We need to keep that in mind. It's not a special super brain. He points out the economics of model training as such. The lab needs to release the big models widely. They cannot generate returns from always holding back their best models so that one customer uses them. It's not plausible for them to create a new model, give it just to the Department of War, and then release it to the public 6 months later. They can't do that. They need to be constantly releasing stuff, constantly making more money, constantly getting more investment. They don't have the luxury of doing this just for one customer. Fine-tuning and specialized SLMs are useful, but they do not expand the ability frontier. So they could provide to the Department of War, Potentially more fine tuning can be done on it, but that's not making it better. That's just constraining it into a certain set of tasks, which will make it better at those tasks, but it doesn't suddenly make it an AGI or anything more than what was provided. Someone said the difference was that the OpenAI version wasn't enforceable and Anthropic's was. So you just give a very strongly worded sounding contract that is non-enforceable, knowing that it won't be enforced, whereas Anthropic might have been less strongly worded, but more specific and therefore more enforceable. It's really hard to tell with these things because we haven't seen the whole contract. This is obviously top secret. All we see are the public outbursts from people like Trump, from people like Pete Hegseth, from Dario Amodei in his blog post, and tweets from Sam Altman, etc. That's all we see. So we don't see everything that is bubbling under the surface. I hope in a couple of decades from now, when people can talk about it, we get the full picture, but until then, we are out of the loop, sadly. All seems very fluid. So the US government is continuing to use Anthropic. They've given themselves 6 months, basically, in the Department of War, whereas other federal agencies will need to immediately cease, and potentially other contractors or people who, well, because of supply chain risk, contractors who use Claude will have to stop using Claude. So it's going to be a massive blow to their enterprise and their B2B sales. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of their money comes from. However, there's been a popular surge in using Claude. Claude has never been popular. ChatGPT, I believe, has about 900 million users, more than that, approaching 1 billion. Claude is in the tens of millions. It's a much smaller user base. However, their user base generally are coders, or it's companies or enterprise who are using it at a high end and spending a lot of money on tokens and subscriptions. But it's never really been a B2C model for individuals to use, which I think is a shame because Claude is fantastic. And Claude is the model I've been using for the last couple of years in its Claude Chat, which is the main version, Claude Code, which is for building and creating, and increasingly Claude Cowork, which is moving towards becoming an OpenClaw replacement. I will talk about that more probably this week. If we have a slow news day, I don't think we will though. So based on this, Claude has suddenly become a popular darling and is suddenly topping the App Store. So in America in particular, it has hit number 1. Number 1 is Claude, number 2 is ChatGPT, number 3 is Google Gemini, number 4 is Temu, and number 5 is Free Cash. This, as Theo points out here, the top 5 apps are 3 AI chat apps, Temu, and Free Cash. I don't know how to explain, but this feels like a recession indicator, and I feel it. These are offloading your thinking. This one's spend your money, and this one's make free money. So the whole thing is like a stack of very lazy applications, but that's not the point. The point is Claude has hit number 1. In the UK, I checked this morning, it's not number 1, it's number 3, but it is doing very well. It's the first time that Claude has really had its popular spike. Google and Google Gemini have that with Nano Banana. When Nano Banana and Nano Banana Pro came out, they had massive surges in downloads. Claude has never really had that. I think one of the reasons is Claude very much focuses on doing one thing and one thing very well. It does writing and it does code. That's it. It doesn't do image generation. It definitely doesn't do video. It doesn't really have a proper voice assistant. You can talk to it, but that's it. So it's a very stripped down, very focused application. Unlike ChatGPT, which has, it has an app store. You can chat to it in multiple voice modes. You can use Sora to make videos. You can create images inside of it. It's got all the different learn, study modes, the ability to create custom GPTs. It has a lot of bells and whistles. Claude has never had that. Claude does one thing very well, text. That's it. However, it is now being downloaded. This is mainly in support of them telling Trump to piss off, basically. So this is the biggest day of Claude app downloads in history by far. So this is, oh no, it doesn't work with Claude, but he's looking at them. He's watching the app downloads. Katy Perry signed up for it the other day and tweeted that she's now using Claude. So again, it's coming into the public conscious in a way that it never had before. When they did the Super Bowl advert, which was about a month ago, the main takeaway that people had based on the market research was confusion because they had no idea what Claude was. Claude is not a household name, but most people outside do not. They know ChatGPT. Maybe they know Gemini. Probably not. But ChatGPT is basically synonymous with artificial intelligence. So Claude is having a moment. That is very exciting. What I want to show you is if you are using ChatGPT and you've never used Claude before and you're thinking, oh, maybe it's time to have a look at it. So you can now import your memories from ChatGPT into Claude. Claude built this little tool to help you do that. So if you go to claude.com/import-memory, or just Google it, you'll be able to find it. They've built a tool that will allow you to do it. I think I'm logged in, so this might not work for me. But what it does, oh wait, Claude has gone down, hasn't it? Claude is down. I can't show it to you. They've built a little tool which allows you to go to ChatGPT to export your memories and then to bring them into Claude, and then Claude will put them into its own persistent memories, so you can continue as if you were still using the same artificial intelligence. Persistent memory is a huge stickiness factor when it comes to using an AI. If you've been using an AI for a year and it knows about your personal life, what you do for business, what you do for work, your preferences, etc., it's much better able to give you good answers without you having to give it a huge amount of context. So moving from ChatGPT to any model is always difficult because you're starting fresh. So they have built this little memory importer to help you with that. So I will put this in the newsletter, and hopefully Claude is up and running. I don't know why it's down now. And no, I don't think it is necessarily because of this, because of the political issues. It says, update, we have identified that the Claude API is working as intended. The issues that we're seeing are related to Claude AI with login, logout paths. That's unfortunate for them because a lot of people right now downloading Claude, and lots of people are going to be downloading Claude, and if their first usage of Claude it doesn't work, yeah, that's a real problem. That's a fuck up, guys. Again, I say this as someone who loves Claude, but that's going to be incredibly damaging because they have a lot of potential goodwill here with people flooding from ChatGPT over to Claude, but if their first usage of it, if their first day they cannot use Claude, they are not going to come back. So I hope you fix that real soon because that's a mess. Does Gemini do theirs too? Yeah, Gemini, they did add unified memory. Honestly, I don't know why ChatGPT was the only one to have memory, because they only just added auto memory into Claude very recently. So they released that last week, literally on the Feb 26th. And inside Claude, which I can't show you because it's down, there's now a way to toggle on unified memory as well. Yeah, Turtle Wolf Skull says it's probably a flood. Yeah, it's probably, so Claude, as I said, has never had a large user base. So if they're suddenly having millions of people downloading that app, they're not ready for that. And they're in a really difficult position of, will they be able to scale up their servers, or will companies, AWS, who they host with, will Amazon this morning be like, it's risky us dealing with you because of the supply chain risk from the Department of War? Shit, it's a potential. Cool, so that's where we are right now. If you are leaving ChatGPT, you're coming over to Claude for the first time, there are some learning resources. If you go to anthropic.skilljar.com, there are some free courses. We have Claude Code, Claude 101, AI Fluency, Building with the Claude API, Introduction to MCP, Model Context Protocol, AI Fluency for educators, for students, etc. These are in a very weird order. So Claude 101 should be the first one. So you can register, and I believe you get a certificate for completing it as well. These are all totally free. Claude has put all of this stuff together for you. A good way to learn what Claude can do, get certified for it as well, because you get a certificate of completion, and it is free. And it looks like they have some relatively advanced ones. Very cool. Agent skills, MCP, API, it's all here. So I just want to flag this up, anthropic.skilljar.com, if you want to make the transition from ChatGPT over to Claude and you want to fully be aware of their whole ecosystem. This is going to be a cool way to do it. I'm also going to do during this week a presentation on Claude Cowork, which is a desktop application which can run tasks for you. So you give it a task and it will open up its own little Chrome browser. It will click around, collect the information it needs. It will create a folder in your computer, save everything in there, and basically work on its own in the same way that OpenClaw does. Now, there are certain limitations. It's not quite as powerful as OpenClaw, but I think it's a very good alternative to OpenClaw if you are less technical. Because OpenClaw does require, to use it safely, to use it effectively, it does require some technical ability, whereas Claude Cowork is the sanded off a lot of the rough edges. I will be doing a presentation about how you can start to use it for your everyday tasks. One of the tasks I hate doing is sending receipts into my bookkeeper. I have to do it every few months, and it requires going into my email, finding the receipts, downloading the receipts, sticking them in the folder somewhere, checking I've got the right ones. Sometimes the company doesn't send me an email. I'm looking at you, OpenAI. They don't send an email with the invoice. You have to log into the platform, go to the dashboard, find your invoices, download the correct invoices, put them in the right place, and then send everything off to the bookkeeper. Nightmare. I hate doing it. Cowork just did it all for me over the weekend. So I said, this is the list of invoices I need to find, email them to here. Some of them were going to be in my Gmail. Some of them are going to be on websites. Go and find everything, compile it in one place, double check it against this list, and then send it all off. It's like, cool, made its own little workspace and got to work on that task. That Cowork is just stunningly useful. That is a task that would have taken me a few hours, but more importantly, I hate doing. I would rather an AI just gets on with it. I'll be talking about that kind of thing and how you can use Cowork to make your life a hell of a lot easier. Because the problem I've had with OpenClaw is I love it. I love playing around with it. I love setting it up. I love the complexity of it. I spend more time working on OpenClaw than I do working with it. So I spend more time configuring it, making sure it works, updating its memory, etc., rather than actually doing productive work. So it feels like I'm building the ultimate productivity tool, but in reality, I'm just faffing around. I'm not getting any work done. Of course, you can start using OpenClaw productively, but I think the depth and the complexity and how interesting it is tends to pull people in to not actually be productive, but to spend more time working on their OpenClaw than actually doing any work. I'm sure a few of you will sympathize with that. Slightly off topic, have you tried Perplexity Computer yet? No, not yet, and it's on my list. So every single AI company, like AI labs and startups, they saw the success of OpenClaw at the beginning of the year, and they're like, shit, we better get on this. So we have things like Manus Agent. So Manus Agents is basically their version of OpenClaw, which you can put in Telegram. You can chat through Telegram. It controls its own little computer. So it works basically like OpenClaw. That's in Manus. There is Perplexity Computer. There we go. Unifies every AI capability into a single system. Computer is a general purpose digital worker that operates the same interface as you do. It's the next evolution of AI. Chat interfaces have answers while agents can do tasks. This is Perplexity's version. Then there is Claude Cowork. And OpenAI will presumably be releasing their own version of OpenClaw now that they hire Peter Steinberger, the creator of OpenClaw. What all of these are doing is they're doing, Perplexity nailed it here. We previously used AI. So for all of 2024, 2025, we used it to get answers. So we would chat to AI, we'd get answers from it, then we'd go off and do the work. That was fine, absolutely fine. We are now moving to a level where the AI does the work for us. So previously we'd get advice, we'd chat through things, and then we'd go and do it. Now the AI will just go and do it. Chat interfaces have answers while agents can do tasks. That is the shift we're seeing. So whether it's using OpenClaw, Cowork, Perplexity Computer, Manus Agents, MaxClaw from Minimax, etc., they're all aiming towards this future where the AI will actually go and do the task for you, which is very cool. How about logins? Will it know the password from the site to log in and find the invoice? Yeah, so this is where security comes in. So you can do this a few ways. If you are using OpenClaw, you need to be more careful. What I've seen people do is they set it up as an employee, basically. So when you use something like LastPass or 1Password, you can set up a separate account for your employees and you give them their own passwords. That also means you can revoke as well. You can do that if you're using OpenClaw. With Claude Cowork in particular, because I trust it more than OpenClaw, I just gave it a tab where I was logged into these things anyway. So I was already logged into ChatGPT, I was logged into Zapier and various different services. So it just went there and I could see it clicking around and getting the invoices for me. With OpenClaw, you don't have that visibility because it's off doing it. So you'll give it a message on WhatsApp or Telegram or wherever. It will go off and do the task, and then it will come back and say, hey, I've done the task. But then there's always that lingering question of what else did you do and did you actually do the task? Whereas with Cowork, because you can see it happening, it was also downloading all the invoices locally into a folder on my computer so I could actually go and see them all. There's just more visibility. Obviously, you can build that kind of stuff with OpenClaw, but that requires an additional step. A huge time saver. Thanks, Carl. Yes, Tamas, check out Cowork. It's really good. I will do a proper presentation on it. But I think it's pushing us in the direction of an AI agent, local AI agent that anyone can use, because you just give it instructions as you would a chatbot. It will work out how to do all of that stuff. It will give you a plan, and then it will go off and do the work for you. Now, obviously, we've been able to do this with Claude Code and with other tools before, but the simplicity of Cowork is what makes it a lot more exciting, because we can give it to non-technical people. Yes, Claude is down. Yes, I've heard. Thank you. Whoa, there's a lot of you watching. That's cool. If you want to get a summary of everything that's been going on and everything that's been covered in the news in this live, you can sign up for the newsletter at aiwithkyle.com. If you come to aiwithkyle.com, click on join the community. If you're going to get a free AI readiness course, there's another 8 free courses there, 100 playbooks, access to the lives, the daily update newsletter, etc. Just a whole bunch of stuff. That's all free. You will get a written version of the news. So it allows you to keep up with what's going on without having to watch me live every day. This is the one that came out today. Gives a rundown, gives my take. If I think something is bullshit, I will say it is bullshit. I don't take any sponsorship from the companies. I have a hoodie and a hat from ChatGPT. That is it. But that means that I am equally kind and equally brutal to all of them. So that's in aiwithkyle.com if you want to follow along. Also, the shorter versions of the clips, as well as a cleaned up version of the live, will be on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe there. And on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, begrudgingly, and Twitter. So make sure you check me out and follow me there. Thank you so much, everybody. Again, it's aiwithkyle.com, and I will see you